Welcome, everyone. I'm very glad that you could join us today. My name is Paula Newcomb, and I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator for today's webinar. You might have heard we had a fire, Eckhart Public Library. If you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will try to answer them as we go along, or in the special spot that we've got for the questions. So today's presenters are Jamie Long, Marketing and Community Manager, Engagement Manager at Eckhart. Alan Sweeny is their IT Manager. We've got Angie Mapes, President of the Eckhart Library Foundation, and Jenny, I'm going to say
Kobiela-Mondor.
Sorry, I should have asked. Jenny Kobiela-Mondor, Library Strategist at the Midwest Collaborative Library Services, and she's also the former Assistant Director at the Eckhart Public Library. After this webinar has been transcribed, it will be available on the Indiana State Library's archive webinars page. If you're watching an archive recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to Indiana State Library's e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word, and check our continuing education website for other professional development opportunities. So let's get started. And also I'll start with a reminder, which I usually forget myself. In the chat, you'll see, maybe you'll see hosts and panelists. Make sure you click on the arrow and turn it to everyone so that if you have a question, everyone can see your question. So now I will hand the presentation over to our panel.
All right. Well, the title, you may have heard we had a fire, is based on something that we said over and over and over again for at least 3 years, probably more. And so it felt like a very fitting title for what we're about to go through. As Paula said, she introduced all of us, and our contact information is right here, and it will be available again at the end. And to give you kind of an idea of what's going to of what this was like, we're going to show you some pictures and kind of talk about the timeline, and then we'll go through and take any questions. So, Jenny, you want to start us off?
Yes, sure. So June 2017, we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, really excited. A group of us went to the ALA annual conference to go to the exhibit hall. It was in Chicago. Jamie and I met Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress. It was super exciting. We all came back with all these great ideas. And then just a few weeks after that, Jamie can tell you about that.
Yeah.
And
Alan?
Yep. So okay, great. So yeah, I got a phone call pretty early in the morning on July 2nd, and I would get the phone calls in general about alarms, and a lot of times it's a false alarm or a door's open or something like that. So I received a call and went to the library, and I was expecting a false alarm, and as you will see, that is not the case.
So Alan and I stood outside for what seemed like hours. And when we were finally able to see what happened, and the rest of the management team was able to convene, because when something like this is going to happen, you can guarantee that everyone except a couple of you are going to be out of town, which was the exact situation on 4th of July weekend. So as everyone came in, we started to see the scope of what had actually happened. This is the window looking into the entrance. I'm going to go through a bunch of these pretty quickly so you can kind of see just the scope of what we're talking about. Some of them have been, I'm going to keep going backwards, I apologize. Some of them have been lightened to kind of show a little bit more of the detail. If we learned what exactly will melt at what temperature. This is
didn't know would melt
thing,
like a television.
Like a television.
Didn't know what that looked like, or a computer.
Receipt printers. There's a lot of plastic in libraries in general. It looked like we spray painted the shelves black. They were cream. The DVDs were actually melting out of their cases. That's the silver that you can see. A lot of display shelving.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
So the internal book drop is our catalyst here. So keep that in mind. Unfortunately, we did lose some art that was unable to be replaced. Something that will also come up again is the window well that you're going to see on your screen. So keep that in mind. It was July, and so our air conditioning was running, and the HVAC took whatever soot was not in the apex center of the fire all throughout the building.
Mhm.
You can see the outline of areas where it looked like there was no fire damage whatsoever. As soon as you move something, you could see the effects.
Mhm.
So what actually happened? Alan, do you want to go through kind of what they told us and how we proceeded there?
Sure, yeah. So in the beginning, July 2nd, we were told that it was likely an electrical related fire and that it was a barcode scanner that was the issue. And then so we were able to get some paintings out July 3rd and 4th. And then from there, it kind of swapped around a little bit, and it was realized that it was actually an act of arson, and that it was a mortar style firework that then caused that. So things changed quite a bit, quite drastically, just in a couple days.
And so just like that, we became a crime scene. For those of you that are unaware, a firework mortar is the type that you will put in a tube, and so it will explode upward and then explode outward. And so there were 2 explosions inside the library that resulted in the fire. And then once we were a crime scene, we had to then wait for the insurance company to go and take control of the building and to catalog and go through everything in the building. So by the time we got in, it was probably mid to late August where everything had been sitting as it had.
Which included foot, and it included water because the firefighters came and took, and so it was baking in July. So it was not, I mean, it was really bad in there by the time we were able to get in.
It was a very putrid environment. Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we didn't think to buy one of these buttons that said in case of emergency rebuild library. So we had to just do it. If you can invest in one of these buttons, I highly recommend it. So this is what it looked like for a long time in our working environments. We were just cobbled around tables with as many healthy foods like pizza and egg McMuffins and rice and rolled donuts as you can imagine.
There's some grapes or something on the table too.
Yeah, we had some fruit.
I think I brought you some fruit at one point.
Yeah. But we had kind of one thought, which was how do we get started again as soon as possible? What do we need to do? I don't know where that laughter came from. I apologize. Okay.
There's a ghost.
Sometimes we were laughing.
It's fine.
We were really lucky. We had 2 other buildings as part of our library campus. We had our main library, we had a teen library, and our genealogy center. And so we were able to open after being closed for 7 days out of our genealogy and teen library with very modified services. But it wasn't super easy. When we decided to open after those 7 days, Mother Nature thought it would be fun to give us a little bit of a downpour. And so both of the genealogy center and the teen library started leaking and flooding. And so Alan was standing in the rain with a drill trying to divert water away from the gutters with any type of tubing and other equipment we could find. And the quote that is on the screen is something I will never forget him saying, because the main library was also leaking. and he put a half melted trash can under where we thought the leak was. It was just a fun time. But kind of like the rainbow at the end of the storm, without any coordinated efforts on our part, the children of the community started lemonade stands for the library. And we just started seeing them pop up. And it was exactly what we needed to see. Angie, did you have something you wanted to mention about?
Sure, I'll just jump in really quick here. From my perspective, I'm not a librarian, so thanks for having me be part of this. But I was working with the library before the fire as a consultant, and then had transitioned to a volunteer role. And so at this point, you know, as the library was resuming services, there were sort of two diverging tracks, and sometimes they intersected back and forth. But there were these people that you see on your screen who were wildly working to try and resume services that people needed. And then we also, sometimes they were the ones working on it, and sometimes it was volunteers trying to come up with a rebuilding plan. And that turned into a capital campaign. And we were really inspired by people like these children. Just to give you a little context, the library opened in 1911, and had been expanded in 1996. And so it was really important to us to maintain the historical integrity of the library. And in its entire history, our library had not bonded or borrowed for any projects. And so we wanted to see if our capital campaign could continue that, even knowing that the insurance payout was not going to be nearly adequate enough for what we needed. But back when the library had opened, the children had raised money to pay, the children at the time in the 1900s had raised money to pay for a frame for the portrait of Charles Eckhart, our founder, who hangs above our fireplace. And so, you know, we saw what these kids were doing more than 100 years later with their lemonade stands. And it was really inspiring to all of us who were working on that reopening campaign. But yeah, I just want to reiterate that the people who were resuming services were not only doing that, but they were helping work on reopening plans. And they were doing about at least 4 or 5 times the amount of work that they normally would have been doing.
So what was that work that we were doing? Honestly, we just kept going. I think if we had stopped to think about it too hard, it would have seemed too insurmountable, but we were right in the middle of summer read. And as everybody in libraries know, that's not the time that you put the brakes on. We had commitments, we had a finale celebration we had to get ready for, and we were committed to do it. Oops. We had a lot of support from area libraries. If you are in this panel right now, you have probably helped us in some way. Katie, who is our executive director now, but at the time was working at Kendallville, said, "What do you need?" And we said, we're supposed to have this event on Saturday. And she said, "I'll bring the games." And so all of the games came from Kendallville. We were able to move our event to the park. For the public, we wanted them to know that even though they couldn't come to the building anymore, we were still very much there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny, do you want to talk a little bit about our saving grace?
Yes. Evergreen was a huge saving grace. We had moved to Evergreen the year before. So we were still fairly new on Evergreen, Indiana, and being a member. And we were really excited to join and be able to get books from other libraries. Isn't this so cool? We could send out our books. And it turned out to be exactly what we needed. And we got so much support from the Evergreen, Indiana community to be able to get items. We were able to open up to our student cards and people who normally just would borrow from us, but we didn't have any books. And so Evergreen was so helpful. The support was there, and it was our saving grace to be part of that consortium so that our patrons could continue to get books. So, and DVDs and everything else. So they were wonderful.
And thankfully, we had really started to restructure and to get a new outlook on our library services because in 2015, 2 years before the fire, Jenny and I got to do a training with the Harwood Institute in Detroit. And we started their idea of being turned outward and being not just part of a community, but being in your community, being a mover in your community and responding to what your community really needs was very inspiring for us. And so we wanted to be where the people of our community were. If they weren't coming to us, we were going to go to them. And so that put us in a really good position to, once we didn't have a building for them to come to say, well, we were going to go anyway, so we're just going to go to them. Jenny, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was really great. The Harwood training was awesome, and we were actually able to go through a scholarship from the Midwest Collaborative for Library Services, which is where I work now, MCLS. And it like Jamie said, it was like a real paradigm shift, kind of a life-changing idea for us. We had thought we had been engaged in the community, and we were, but this kind of embedded turned outward stance was amazing. And we actually were working on a strategic plan with a consultant in October of 2015 when we went to Harwood. And when we got back, we were like, stop the presses. We have to, make sure that this is in our strategic plan. And so the strategic plan that we were in the middle of when the fire happened really had that turned outward stance to it, which was great. We had already started, like Jamie said, going out into the community, going to where people are, making partnerships with organizations that people were already a part of. And so when we didn't have a building anymore, it was going to other people's places. It was people supporting us, people inviting us to things. So it was really, Harwood was a real life-changing kind of thing for the library, and it came at just the right time.
We call it kind of the Little Mermaid philosophy, but maybe don't tell the Walt Disney Company that. And so meanwhile, we had been operating out of our teen and our genealogy center, but it just was not providing the type of services to the community that we needed to. And so Janelle, our director, really did a ton of work to make sure that we had a temporary location to operate out of during this time frame. So where we are standing is an empty Hallmark store, and that became what was known as our Auburn Plaza location during the time of the fire. And we wanted to make sure that we had as many people engaging with the library as we could during this time period, because it was really difficult, especially for the children. There were a lot of questions about, why would somebody hurt the library? Why can't I be at the library? Is the library okay? And so we wanted to show them that we really were okay, and that we weren't going anywhere. And the picture on the right side of your screen is the children's area of that old Hallmark store.
Yeah, and as we were working through all of this, we were really thinking about, we were running the library. We were going to outreach. The picture on the left is at an outreach event. And so we were doing all of this, and we were also working on what the library is going to look like in the future. And so what we had to think about was, what is the library going to look like for the future? And we had a really exciting opportunity at the time, because we didn't want to put the library back together just the way that it was. If we had done that, we wouldn't have needed the huge capital campaign, because insurance would have largely covered us going back to what we were doing. We wouldn't have needed all of that, but it had been about 20 years or so since the library had been updated. So we really challenged ourselves to think 20, 50, 100 years in the future, like what is a library going to need? What is a library going to look like? And of course, we don't know exactly. So we worked really hard to be able to make it a flexible space, to think about how could we make it so that in the future, depending on what changes, the library is still going to serve the community. And we really focused, again, with that turned outward stance on what does the community want and need? What is our place in the community? What are our community's aspirations, and where can we fulfill those? And that comes from that Harwood turned outward stance.
We had, when we were coming up with the rebuilding plan, what I kind of called the three-legged stool that we were building it off of. And the strategic plan that Jenny talked about was one part of that. And then we had received earlier that year a really generous grant from the DECO Foundation, which is a youth-focused foundation based in Noble County. And that grant was for planning, and we had used it. We had used part of it to do a really in-depth financial analysis, looking forward to how much we would have to put in an endowment to secure the maintenance and emergency fund for the library, to make our funding much more stable and less vulnerable to the whims of the traditional public library funding options. And we also had used part of it to do a really in-depth facilities analysis, not only of our main library building that was damaged, that was later then damaged in the fire, but all the other campus buildings, as Jamie had said, this building was leaking and this building was leaking. And so we had already identified all these things and had been planning on how we would finance maintenance and repairs and improvements to those buildings. And so when we came together to create that rebuilding plan, all of those things really informed it. And I just wanted to say, from a patron perspective, this picture on the right there, that's my daughter in the green shirt in front. And I had an infant at the time who was about 7 months old. And from a patron perspective, to be able to continue to take my daughter to library events and story times and things like that on July 2nd would have been absolutely unfathomable to me. If you would have said, oh, in a couple of weeks, you'll be going back to story time. Like, I would not have believed you. It just very much felt like, oh, the world is ending. And then the just remarkable resiliency of this library was just something to see. It was amazing.
Now, we absolutely felt like we were not going to stop, and we absolutely had to keep going, but it didn't always feel good. The chaos was very real. There were times where we just wanted to do anything that wasn't thinking. We got to move the furniture in one of our buildings to make it feel like it was a more open space to welcome more people in, and that felt amazing because we were actually doing something instead of just feeling like we didn't know what we were going to do next. So even though we were very committed, we were very excited about the possibilities of the future, there was a lot of trauma and there was a lot of unknowns that sometimes weren't very comfortable. Alan, did you have anything you wanted to mention to that?
Sure. It just kind of felt like, so, because from the outside, it's kind of like, well, when's the library going to open up? Like that's the one question. When's the library going to open back up? But kind of like from the inside, trying to on the library campus, and this is a little bit kind of echoing what Jenny had said earlier, there's a library campus that's involved. There's a temporary location. Kind of working out those logistics. That was an old Hallmark store, and it was just a big open empty box. And because of the generosity of other libraries, we were able to kind of furnish and shelve those areas. And then there's also the library as it is, and figuring out like insurance wise, documenting everything and going through all of that. And then at the same time, looking to the future and what we would like for the future to look like. So kind of, the past, present, and future all at once. There was a lot happening in a lot of different ways, all simultaneously. So.
But we found weird bits of inspiration as we went, and we knew that because serving the community and serving our public was the most paramount thing to do, that was where our focus had to be. And so slowing down and stopping never really even entered anyone's mind. And I would like to say that we gave them a rousing speech and everyone was moved and the music swelled and people wept, and that's really not what happened. It was just instinctive in a lot of ways.
And a lot of dark humor.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it was a long time coming, but we were finally going to be at the point where we could open our doors. We were going to open the doors. We were moving things from the Auburn Plaza location. We got to close it. We were telling people it was coming. Everyone was getting really excited. And then something happened. We got to open our doors for about 12 hours on March 15th. And then there was a little something happening called coronavirus. And then we had to close 12 hours later. So people got to come in, they got to take a peek at the library, and then we got to say bye. And before that even really really sunk in what had just happened, things were already happening. Our staff pivoted in a way that I have yet to see ever happen again. And Jenny, I think you can speak to this more than anybody.
Yeah, when we decided, I mean, we kind of knew COVID was coming, especially, you know, we were supposed to do like a grand reopening party on a Sunday. And we were like, oh, this coronavirus thing, I'm not sure we should even do it. We ended up being open, but not doing the whole celebration. And then the next day, that Monday, that's when everything started closing. And I just wanted to like crawl under my desk. I was like, really? We had this beautiful library. We were all excited and did so much work. We all worked so hard, and especially our managers, you know, so much behind the scenes. And our staff just pivoted. They were like, well, if they can't come to the library, we're going to do videos and we're going to do this and we're going to try this. And they were ready to go. They had been through so much that there was so much resilience there. It was really a test of that resilience to then have the COVID lockdowns and everything. And they inspired me at that point because I really did. I just wanted to like throw in the towel. I was like, I'm done. How could this timing be like this? And it was really inspirational to see a staff that had been working under difficult conditions, but had really internalized that community service and that focus of, we're going to serve our community wherever they're at and whatever's going on. It was really, they had internalized that message, that turned outward stance so well that they were just like, all right, here's the next thing we're going to do.
And what I saw of the library at that time too was not just you know, not just creativity, but there was a genuine concern of how do we actively engage and how do we inclusively serve, especially people who are more vulnerable or who are more, you know, in danger from this virus, or who are more in danger from other complicating factors like poverty or things like that. Children who were having to study at home, but who might not have the support that they needed. You know, how can we improve their situations? It was really, it was not just how do we just get through this at the bare minimum. It was how do we excel at this?
And thankfully we were part of a community that was very, very driven to addressing those issues. And as we all know, COVID didn't create problems. It just kind of illuminated where there were issues that needed to be addressed. So finally, after a lot of work, we get to open again.
We really opened.
We really tried our best. Some of the decisions, as we know, were not scientifically sound at the time. But we did what every library was doing, where we took the information that was available and tried to make the best choices that were available to us at the time to continue to serve the public. Some of those decisions you find out later, not exactly what was helpful, but it was doing the best that we could in difficult scenarios. And sometimes you'll make decisions in difficult scenarios that you look back on and go, what?
But you looked great doing it.
Yeah.
But you know, we tried. I got to live out some magic school bus dreams. So what did we learn from all of this? Kind of a lot. You really have to look at the bright side. These are photos from the solar eclipse program. I'm sure everyone remembers, where we had people lined up 2 hours before the program even started to get their glasses, and we didn't have a building or public bathrooms or running water. And it went as successfully as I think it could have.
Mhm.
And so those are the kind of, let's focus on our wins when we can.
Yes, Paula, it was dedication. It was also fear that there was going to be a riot if they couldn't get those eclipse glasses. And I think every single public librarian knows what we're talking about.
Yes, we already have them for 2024. Okay. Keep moving. If you can't move forward, move sideways. Working in a state of constant change and unknown is very difficult. And so there was a lot of turnover, understandably. It was a lot for people to be able to work with. And so, you know, just not worrying about how are we going to go forward. Just sometimes it's the most important thing is just to go forward, or move any way you can that you can keep going. If you experience anything catastrophic like this, know that there's going to be change. There's going to be a lot of change. Some of it you're going to be excited about, and some of it you're going to not be excited about. But we live in our library world is a world of change, from the items that are on our shelves to the technologies that we utilize. And so even though change can be hard, it's part of what we do. And so we did a lot of stuff during this time. We got a new website. We rebranded entirely. We switched our technology platforms. At a certain point, we had plans, and it was either, well, we're not going to do it and we're going to wait until the time is right. But we also didn't want to wait forever to do what we knew needed to be done.
I think the time is never going to be right is sort of the lesson of that.
Yes.
You just have to do it sometimes.
Yep. And that's what we did with like Jamie said, the rebranding, but also we were set up to switch to Google as kind of our technology platform. And we just kept going with it. We maybe delayed it a week, but I don't even remember that if we did that or if we just like plowed right ahead. Alan and I did it. I can't remember the details, but it was just okay, we were going to do this. Let's do this. And actually it was a really good change because it helped with communication. So, you know, the branding helped with the fundraising and things like that, getting the word out. So, you know, it was stuff that needed to be done. So we did it.
Be patient. However patient you think you are, be 10 times more patient than that. Expect delays. The thing that we always laugh about now is we were told at the very beginning, you will be open again in 6 months. Not only were we not open again in 6 months, I don't even think we had started construction in 6 months.
No, I remember it wasn't even just like, you'll be open in 6 months. It was like, you might have to be closed for an entire 6 months. And it was like, yeah, okay. It's longer than that.
It was longer. So whatever time they tell you, double it.
Or triple it or quadruple it.
Communicate constantly. Whenever you think you've communicated enough, do it again. It's better to over communicate than under communicate. And our staff was incredibly patient, because at the time that the fire happened, I think we didn't even know what to expect, much less what to say. And so after the fact, you'll think, oh, I should have communicated this way. I should have done it this way. You know, we now have plans in place to distribute information in times of crisis, but at the time we never had to do that before. And so nobody likes thinking about the worst case scenario. Some of us are really good at it though. And it's worth taking the time to think, how would we do this if we had to? Work together absolutely as much as possible. You're gonna have to. And we work together as libraries all the time. And so it's kind of the nature of what we do. But nobody could do any of this alone.
And that includes, getting I was gonna say roping in your community, but it is, the Friends of the Library. I'm now on the Friends of the Library board because I can't stay away from this library apparently. Getting people involved to help getting other libraries to help, which, like we've said several times, was absolutely so important and so helpful. But getting everybody that you can involved to help. These are all staff members who were unpacking boxes and putting things on shelves and, all of that. And it was a lot of work, but yeah, working together on that. I think that's probably part of the reason that when the pandemic happened, everyone was like, well, let's figure out something else, because they'd worked together so much.
Oh, gosh, I don't know where this laughter is coming from, but it feeds into something else. Be sure, this is kind of a reminder to get your house in order when you can. The stronger your structure, the stronger your foundation, the easier it's going to be when times are hard. And so, kind of to echo what Angie said, if you wait until the time is right, it's never going to happen. You have to take the time to take care of your structure. It becomes really obvious if you don't, that it needs to be cared for.
Yes,
yeah, we had worked really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Angie.
Oh, I was just going to say the way that the library reopened, as we mentioned before, it wasn't exactly like it was, obviously, but there was so much thoughtful care put into the reopening plan, just to sort of look at the spaces that we could reclaim for public use that weren't being used efficiently. Just so many details. I think that if we had not had done strategic planning and done these other efforts funded by the grants that we had done, we could have put something together, but it wouldn't have had the community's mark on it. And I have been giving tours of the library since it reopened. I have not heard anybody say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. Maybe these people have because they work there, but it really surprised me, because I'm sort of I'm a Virgo, and so I just assume that everyone's going to be criticizing something about it. and so I just was waiting, for somebody to say, well, this looks terrible. Nope, everybody loves it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Angie, the strategic planning was so important, and having that community engagement. And I can see that. That's part of the reason the job I'm in now at MCLS, why I like it so much, is one of the things we do is go do strategic planning and facilitate strategic planning for libraries. And it's very community focused, because that is what is so important, is having that community buy-in, having that community focus and that engagement. But then also having the staff buy-in too. So the staff understood, here's where we're going. Here's what we need. And that's that foundation that then you can do. We didn't change our strategic plan when the fire happened. Our plan was still our plan. There were things we had to push to the next strategic plan. There were things that we had to do differently than we thought. But the ideas of here's what we want to accomplish, here's what our plan is, those stayed. It was all, and that's the thing, is a good strategic plan can shift with what's going on. And I'm sure some people saw that happen or not happen during COVID as well. But that strategic plan really gives you that foundation that then whatever happens, you can pivot, you can move, you can figure out where you're going next.
It made it so much easier then to Jamie and I especially worked a lot together on communicating with the public what the reopening plan would be, and not just the public, but with funders for our capital campaign. And it made it so much easier to articulate those messages to people and help them understand what we were trying to accomplish, including creating an endowment. And I'm saying easy, and that's probably not the right word, but it made it less painful is maybe a better way of saying it, to craft those kind of messages, because there was an appetite to help among the community. And when you already have that focus in place of where you're going, it makes it just so much easier to get buy-in from people.
Be creative all the time. Never think, this is how we've done it, this is what works. Don't fix something that's not broken. But just because something's always been done a certain way doesn't mean that is the only way to do things. I was genuinely really surprised at how creative our staff could be when they needed to. It was really inspiring to us, I think. Again, be in your community as much as possible. Don't assume you know what they need. I know that it's really easy for us because we see so many community members to think, oh, we know what they need. We know exactly what they need. But have conversations, listen as much as possible, and just know what's happening around you as much as you can. Oops. Be creative again. It's good. Laugh as much as you can. Things they get intense, they get stressful, sometimes downright bizarre and overwhelming. So if you can give yourself permission to have a little bit of gallows humor, it's going to happen anyway, whether you want it to or not. It's just such an important release in those times of stress to not take yourself too seriously. Some examples. The graphic that was posted that we were going to be closed for July 4th was an explosion. And then the very next post was that we had to close due to a fire. It was awkward, but it was real. We ordered a book drop kit made out of Legos for our Lego club. And one of the pieces that it came with was a little firecracker. And we had to reach out to the company and said, was this intentional? Is this, because if it's a joke, it's kind of not funny. And it was completely accidental. They said, there were a few random firework pieces, and I think maybe 3 libraries got them, and we happened to be one of them. So we just embraced it. When we went, we had to caravan all of our equipment that we were borrowing from other libraries for our event to celebrate the end of summer read on the way, that happened the week after the fire. And as we were taking loads of equipment back and forth, the music that was on the radio in the van was literally, we didn't start the fire and the heat is on. It felt like we were in some kind of strange irony FM station or something. And look for silver linings. Things like we really hated the carpet. We hated the carpet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We were able to do a lot of things to address what our current needs were, and that's really what you have to focus on.
And we planned to start a library foundation, and then we thought, well, I guess we might as well do that since we're having a capital campaign. It was just a little bit of an accelerated timeline.
Mm-hmm. So to give you a sense of what actually what a building looks like now, this is our building as it was in 2020. It still looks very, very close. We had to add a lot of plexiglass and then take a lot of it out.
When we realized the plexiglass didn't really do very much for COVID, but hey, whatever.
We tried.
We tried.
The historical significance of our library is on the historic register. It's very important to our community. And so the fact that we were able to keep some of those historical touches with a modern functionality was really important to our community.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to include a space for our library of things, which was wonderful.
That
and
was
gets
one
readily
of the,
used.
That was one of the best things. As I visited libraries for my job, they're always like, where do I put the library of things stuff? And I'm like, man, we had to go through a lot, but we've got a really good place in our library to do the library of things. So
we went from having 2 meeting rooms, 1 large and 1 small, to having 2 large and 3 small meeting rooms. And so we were really able to expand the public footprint that was available. And even when times were absolutely frustrating and overwhelming and it felt like we wanted to sleep for 24 hours straight, being able to see the community gathering at the library once again was so powerful, and it's still exciting when I see the library full. It's like this is exactly what we were working towards.
mm-hmm.
Now, does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, Paula. We did get a comment about this being hopefully a wake-up call to check your insurance coverage, think about your book drop. We never thought, we knew you could put something gross in the book, in the book drop that went into the library, but I don't think anybody really thought like a firework. And it was attached to the building. And I know some, if it's attached to the building, it's in the books go into like a little box that's, fireproof or very much like that. We didn't have that. It just went into a plastic bin, and we do not have a book drop attached to the building anymore. We went ahead and invested in a big outdoor book drop that's set away from all of our buildings.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one question, and I had one I was going to say too.
Yeah.
Don't know which one to start with. How about mine? Okay, sorry. You guys probably had to go through the grief phases. Did you have anyone extra come in to help with that?
We didn't. I think we just almost didn't think about it.
We did have some yoga stuff.
Oh, that's right.
Yoga and meditation for staff, but at the time, I think honestly, maybe it was denial. But yeah, I really don't. It a lot of times it showed up after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did get some information. I think it was the ATF that sent us information about these are signs of trauma that you can expect to see. And so like we made sure to share that with all of our staff and things like that. I think if we were to experience something like this again, we absolutely would.
Mm-hmm.
But the shock of what happened was honestly what took precedence, I think, at that time.
And I think there was so much focus on you all just getting through it. And from an outsider's perspective, it seemed like everyone was sort of having some of it resolved by the reopening, and then wham, you were thrown into that second crisis of COVID immediately. Yeah. And so it was very, very much delayed, I guess. I was just going to answer the question that was about whether anyone was charged for the crime. It was a young man in his early 20s, and he was sentenced to, I think, 12 years for arson. He was going around the neighborhood with a couple friends, and they were daring each other to put these fireworks on people's porches. The library is in a really an older residential neighborhood. A lot of people have mailboxes attached to their houses on their front porches. And they had talked about putting it on somebody's porch, which would have been a catastrophic event for a house for sure. There could have been major loss of life. So in that way, you know, the library took the hit, but at least nobody got hurt. But yes, he was under the influence, and he I think he had another couple of years tacked on for a probation violation. But it was a huge disappointment because, you know, he was someone from the community who just made a really poor decision.
Yeah.
But I will say it has been a really teachable moment. We give a lot of tours to elementary school students, and they will often ask either why did somebody do this or what happened to them after they did this. And so it's a good way for us to show how important making good decisions is to the youth of the community. And also just for everyone knows, it was 4th of July weekend, so the firework mortar was actually purchased at one of those Walmart firework parking lot stores. And so it was something, even though the ATF considers it a level 2 explosive device, it was something that could just be purchased over the counter fireworks, I guess.
Over the counter, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Not yet, but also just to reiterate, the time to put together a disaster plan is when you're not in a disaster. And that's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
And you can't help it.
You can't predict every crisis that might happen. You know, I don't know that we would have predicted a fire would have been something quite like this. You know, you'd think like, oh, a fire in the trash can in the bathroom or something. And but what you want to do is know kind of your first steps if something happens. You know, what you want to know, your insurance people and who to call. You want to have a way to get the information out to the community. You want to have a way to get the information out to your staff. You want to know what those first steps are, so then you're not just standing there going, what do we do? And we had a disaster plan, and it did help. You know, we did know, and our director had been there long enough to know, okay, I need to go in and grab the financials. Like that, before it was completely like cordoned off for a crime scene, she was like the paintings and the financial stuff. So, so having kind of knowing where to start is a good thing. And then, you know, having the plan, the strategic plans, and all the plans that you can put together so that you kind of know what way are you going to move forward. And then get the support of the community too. Your community and the library community is really helpful.
And what was so tricky was at the very beginning, we couldn't go in the building. We couldn't get near the building. It was completely cordoned off. And so we just stood outside and waited. And because our staff were so dedicated, we didn't even, when they heard, they came. They came, and community members, when they heard, they came. And it's a horrible thing for people that work in libraries to have to stand there and say, I don't know. Because we couldn't find the information because we didn't know what it was yet. And so it can be very, very frustrating, especially when you can't give people answers to questions. You feel like you're not doing your job. If you can't get that in, but you sometimes you just have to, just showing the public and your staff to the best of your ability that you know, we're gonna be here, we're gonna figure it out. But I highly recommend to come up with a communication plan if you can at all, because it's when it happens, you're gonna forget your own name. And so the idea of like, oh, I'll remember what to do. No, just don't count on it. Write it down, because it's just very overwhelming. That's the only way I can think to put it. And you kind of go on autopilot.
So maybe a good idea to have some like backups or extra plans or somewhere else besides just the library. I mean, I've seen some places say have a buddy library in another part of the country. I mean,
just put it on the cloud so everybody can reach it wherever they are.
Putting it on that's part of what it was so nice then when we switched to Google. having those things in the cloud. And that helped with COVID too, because we could go home and we could still get the things that we needed to get. We could share the new procedures on things. So yeah, I see your comment about bottle rockets in your library that thankfully burned themselves out. But yeah, I used to be like, oh, 4th of July, it's kind of fun. Now every time I hear a firework, I'm like, stop. Because I remember the next year, the year after 2018, I remember sitting in my house being like, I don't like this. I do not like these fireworks anymore. I mean, like the professional ones are still good, but yeah. Yeah, and Paula says dogs and fireworks. Yeah.
Well, and the thing that is really, really, you just don't know how you're going to react sometimes until things like that happen. And I don't think that I can't remember a single staff member that was angry. Like even when we found out it was arson, there was a sense of kind of the wind coming out of you. Because that was a shock. But at the same time, I don't think anyone said, I'm mad. And it was just well, all right, it was arson. What do we need to do now? There was so much work to do that, focusing on some of the details wasn't in the paramount of our mind. But looking back on it now, like I wish that if I had to do it over again, I would handle communication so much differently. Because of what we learned and because of what we went through. And so yeah, if you can make a plan, make a plan. That is my, especially a communication plan for the public and the staff simultaneously. That would be my biggest recommendation, I think.
Even what you might think are the mundane details. I mean, there were people asking that day, well, where should I turn in my books? I've got books out, and people, as I've said before, they have no chill. And so they, but it's a genuine concern for some people. At that time, we still had fines, and they were afraid that if they couldn't turn in their books because the library was closed, would they be fined? And so we had to make sure that was a thing that was being communicated quickly to the community. And, it just, you might think to yourself, oh, well, people aren't going to worry about these little things, but, it's a natural instinct for people to think, how is this going to affect me? And so you have to kind of take yourself out of the library role and look into the user or the patron role and think, what is the patron going to say? How is this going to affect me? And I think that was a lesson that you all learned really quickly and adapted to really quickly too.
That's why the communication is important. You cannot over communicate enough. And we still had people who like a year later would be like, what happened at the light? What? I just needed to walk. We had somebody walk in as it was a construction site being like, I need to fax this. And we're like, this is a construction site. We're not open. There was a fire. And they're like, okay, but do you have a fax machine in here? We're like, gonna have to go to a different building.
To really paint that picture, though, we weren't just a construction site. We were standing in front of a giant concrete hole in the ground.
We were.
With danger tape hanging over our heads. And someone found their way in and needed to fax something. And so to that person, the fire didn't matter. They just needed to fax something. But being able to communicate and being able to just kind of roll with it the best you can.
And then laugh about it later because, we did not laugh in that guy's face. But we
just stared at him incredulously.
Yeah, we were kind of like, but we sure did laugh later.
Alan gets the credit for actually helping the patron instead of staring.
Yeah, so we're all just like, what? Oh my gosh. Yeah, 4th of July week, it makes me nervous now. I don't even work for the library anymore, and I'm still like,
I think the positive effects that I've seen, it just seems like the team at the library does such a great job of just kind of rolling with it. And the small example that I have from this summer is that my kids and we were going to the library for a program with the minor league baseball mascot from our Fort Wayne team. And it was supposed to be baseball in the library park. And I love baseball, so I was super excited. But it was one of those very, very bad air quality days this summer that we had where, you know, everybody was basically like, don't go outside. And so I thought for sure it would be canceled or at least super modified. And I go inside and these amazing librarians have gotten a bunch of paper towel tubes and they had, I think, ping pongs, and they were setting up a baseball game in the library conference room with the minor league mascot. And it just, everybody was laughing and there was no, oh, this is terrible that we're inside. Oh, we had to change our whole plan. It was just such a good example to me of the way that libraries are so creative, and you can't really teach that kind of resiliency, I don't think, but you can sort of try to foster that attitude of just rolling with it and of having grace for circumstances. Our director, Katie, was playing baseball with us. People were walking in and these ping pongs were flying around. You know, it was just such a fun day. And I had just assumed that, oh, well, this is all going to be canceled. Nope, things go on.
Well, and it really, I think that kind of to the what you said about resiliency, it's really, really powerful to see people just kind of step up to the plate, even when they're not asked to. And I think the good thing about the fire in a lot of ways was that it taught us what constitutes a problem.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, years before then, if we were concerned that there might be bed bugs in the library, we were all like, ugh, you know what I mean? And I mean, we still are, don't get me wrong. None of us want bed bugs in the library.
None of us are like, yay, bed bugs.
But it taught us very much that we can deal with this. This isn't an issue. We'll take it. We'll knock it down. Things like that are always going to happen. Sometimes if anyone's worried about something, you know, and I've said this, did you burn the building down? Because if you didn't, we'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Even if you did, we know what to do now. So I mean,
but please don't.
But please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't. But it really showed us the scale of what we can operate under.
Sure. I think for me too, you know, it allowed us to dream really quickly. A lot of times it's like, what would it be like if this was like this?
Yeah.
Or that, or whatever. And this was kind of the opposite of that. It was sort of like, okay, what are your dreams? Let's figure this out. You know, let's go from there. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, I guess, with all of this, is that we were able to kind of like be able to live out some of these dreams, you know, for our community, be able to put that into a building. So
that's a great point, Alan.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start before you're ready. So
yeah. But if you wait till you're ready, you'll never get there. So I think we're at time, aren't we, Paula?
Yeah, I just didn't want to stop the conversation. I think we could
talk about this forever. So
you better stop the conversation. Because,
we can talk about it for a long time. So,
but I think
don't eat all of the Egg McMuffins. That's another advice. Yeah.
Some of the Egg McMuffins.
You've learned so many things to share. It's great to share with others, even though it's horrible that you went through it. But that's the beauty of, in a disaster, you can share what was learned. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you very much to our panel, and thanks for everyone being here today. And as a reminder, if you are watching an archive recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,